There are some specialized lenses out there. This Laowa is certainly one of them. This is a 20mm shift lens, and it's not a new one, but it's been around for about 2 years or so. The idea of a shift lens is that it allows you to change your perspective to straighten your lines. So from this to this, if you are shooting architecture, for example, it's almost like you are shooting a building from the top of a fire engine's ladder instead of from the ground. But my question is, with the sophistication of modern editing programs, is buying a lens like this worth it, when you could just edit the image and create straight lines in post? Laowa lenses are always well packaged. White box, lots of foam inside, reading materials, and the lens itself. Plastic front and rear lens caps, a metal rotating and removable lens hood, and the lens features an absolutely high-end all-metal build. A good third of this lens at the back is adopted for Sony mirrorless, so there's just empty space back here. Metal mount, no electronics, no weather sealing at all. There is a button here to rotate the lens so you can fix your lines whether you are shooting horizontally or vertically. A shift ring, which shifts this lens a maximum of 11mm on a full frame sensor, and this mechanism is very smooth. There is a lock knob in case you want to lock it in. And in front of that is a standard lens, an aperture ring that moves from f4 to f22 with nice clicks. It's smooth, a bit narrow, but you do get used to it. The focus ring is next, and it's very well done. Good smooth resistance and a focal distance scale printed in feet and meters. Rose petal lens hood that rotates and is removable up front, and a modest front lens element with just a few specs: 20mm C Dreamer, 82mm filter thread, and a serial number. Inside there are 16 elements in 14 groups, an 11-bladed diaphragm, and although the package is pretty heavy at just under 800 grams, it does feel premium, well made. The only shortcoming is that lack of weather sealing. Here are some examples of what this lens can do. All of these are taken with my A7C full frame camera, and what I did was I took a regular unshifted image with this lens on the camera, and then I shifted it to demonstrate what this lens does with that perspective. Now, I'll briefly talk about the optics of this lens, and then more importantly, I want to discuss the editing and post versus shooting and really not editing with a corrected perspective. The sharpness on this lens is average. It's an f4, so you'd expect it to be sharp across the board, but it's good in the middle and a bit soft in the edges and in the corners. And unfortunately, when you start shifting, the areas that you are shifting to become stretched, and as a result, there is a degradation of the image quality. The colors are a bit washed out. They don't pop like a normal lens. You'll see that in a comparison coming up. Chromatic aberration is an issue. It is average to below average performance in that regard. I won't talk about bokeh because I can't see that anyone is going to be using this lens for up close shooting in which you'd have bokeh. Really, with this lens, you want to be shooting down at f8, but even then I expected it to be sharper in the corners. It was okay, just not as tack sharp as I expected it. So if I take a regular unshifted image and correct it in Luminar Neo, export it and compare it to an image from this lens shot shifted, you'll see that in terms of sharpness, there's not much of a difference. In this corner, the chromatic aberration is worse on the shifted image, but overall optics are very similar, obviously because they are coming from the exact same lens. The major difference here is in framing. Shooting shifted allows you to adjust the frame and the building correctly in this case, whereas correcting the lines in post can do all sorts of things and mess up your framing. typically the result is you get an image that is cropped in by some fraction. Here is another image I corrected in Luminar Neo and compared it to the one that was shot shifted from the lens, and in this one the shifted image looks a touch sharper, although again chromatic aberration is a factor and I should have pushed the correction a little bit more to match the shot in this comparison. So naturally, after seeing this, my question is, how would this lens do compared to my little Sigma 20mm f2? And so I shot both lenses and the result was surprising. First of all, there is a drastic difference in colors and contrast levels. The Sigma colors are more true to life. Those from the Laowa are a bit cold. Sharpness, I'll let you guys look in the center and in the corners. In my opinion, the Sigma is sharper across the board. Both of these are at f4 with ISO at 160. Now looking at the shifted Laowa image versus the corrected Sigma image, again, I'd say the Sigma image is still sharper, especially out at the corners. Colors are drastically different again. The only benefit of the Laowa is the framing, which again is a recurring theme. If you are correcting in post, you need to shoot wider by either stepping back or using a wider lens to compensate. The Sigma 20mm f2 is a lens that is $699 new and about $400 on the used market. It has autofocus, it's quite a bit more compact, and to me it makes a whole lot more sense to have it around and fix my images in post and correct my lines as necessary, since I don't shoot all that much architecture. But there is a level of hype around this Laowa lens, partially because there are not that many shift lenses out there and rarity brings with it large price tags. I suppose if you didn't want to edit, if you didn't want to pay for an editing program, if you wanted to make sure that your framing was correct, the Laowa would make sense. However, optically, I think this lens might be due for a little refresh. I think it's a bit too large for a 20mm f4, mind you. It's not weather sealed, and at a price of $1,100 US, I would not put this lens on any must-buy list. For most people, a regular 20mm lens is going to be easier to carry around, easier to use, and a less costly option. But that is it for my review. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below, and stay tuned for more. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.